welcome to the Death of a Dream podcast. Okay, this got weird, and here we are. So, let's go ahead, ground ourselves in our greatness. I think, for me, really, it's a weird place to be, looking for greatness with the way that the world works, and I think at the end of the day, my greatness lies in my newfound ability to pay attention to what's being called at me, right? Like, what is being given to me, and not flooring right past that because of what I think I need in that moment, right? Really succumbing, backing down, and accepting the flow of what's going on. So yesterday I was on a call. I was supposed to start this meeting. I didn't know how long this call was going to last. And I've been doing this more and more often. Calling for what I want in a situation. So if I'm in the shower and I really just want to be in that moment, I really just want to cleanse, like, I will ask for this time to last longer. And what I've realized is that the world is abundant. We just aren't great at asking for what it is that we want, right? And that has been a proven underline of this entire body of work, right? When we ask, we will receive. We just don't ask, and we don't ask specifically enough. And so yesterday, where usually I would have gotten real turned up and anxious, within that 5 to 10 minute window, because it's like, I don't know when this is going to end. I don't know if this timeline is going to play out. I don't know if this is going to work, and I need to kind of be in two places at once. And how am I going to do that? And that energy, the anxiety that goes along with the question, right, misbalances the energy and completely distracts me from where I need to be, right? And so I just started asking, right? Like, no, the world is abundant. I know that it will provide exactly what I need, right? And that's what I go into. That's what, every time that I feel that energy, that negative energy or that anxious energy rising up, right? I calm it back down, and I just remind it that the world is abundant, and it's abundant in my favor, and that this will work out. And so, like, we're just creeping. We're creeping right up to the hour that I need to kind of switch over and be in that other place. And I'm just like, is it going to happen, right? And I'm just like backing myself down. No, it's going to happen. Yes, the world is abundant. Yes, the world wants to play in my favor. Yes, this is destined and designed for me. Okay? Trust, believe, return that energy, return the acknowledgement that the world is abundant and working in my favor. And, like, we get up to the very minute. And at this point, I'm like, okay, do we start making an exit plan? Do we have to figure out? And, like, it's right at the time where I need to shift. And the person on this meeting goes, you know what? I think, like, let's just take a 10-minute break. And then we'll regather, we'll reconvene, and we'll pick this back up. And, like, my whole entire mind is just blown at this point, right? Because the thing that we've been talking about, is the importance of matching the frequency at which that you want to engage in, right? Like, matching that. And not falling below that. And falling below that looks like questioning it, right? And so that's been my word this year, right? Not questioning anymore. Trusting, believing so much that that frequency is returned, right? I actually believe that that's going to happen. I actually believe that time is going to slow down when I'm in that shower, and I am going to get what I need and be refreshed and not question that. right? I actually believe that the world is abundant enough, that the world is playing in my favor enough that this will play out the way that I want it to, right? And we're not believing the way we were in fractions, okay? That's what's important. Take the fraction out of it. Don't 3/4 believe and 1/4 in the back of your mind, like be planning out an attack after it doesn't happen. Now, yes, don't go into it blind, but do, right? You have to believe. You have to match that frequency if that's what you want. And I'm almost having a hard time even saying this because a little bit of me has just been bewildered by what has happened just in the short 2 days of me attempting to match frequency, of me attempting to not work in fractions of belief, but entire movements of belief. And like, what blows my mind even more is that everyone could do this, but you don't just shift, right? Like, it takes a whole lot of buildup, a whole lot of shifts in energies, in limiting beliefs, in all of the things to even be able to get to this point mentally, in shifting your spirituality, in like truly manifesting and believing. And gosh, that's a long road, right? So this isn't just for everyone. This isn't just something that you can listen to on this podcast and then just pick up. Like, the road to here is long and fraught and individual, right? I think when I started this podcast, I really had this intention that I was going to be a teacher and I was going to inspire and I was going to do all of these things, right, for people. And what I realized is there really is no way for me to even do that, right? Like, I can tell you what worked for me. I can tell you what led to success for me. And you can take those things as cues. But if you're copy pasting exactly what I'm doing and applying it to your life, you are going to be disappointed by the result. I promise you. There is no way that what worked for me is going to work for you, per diem, right? There's no way. And so it's really, really important that you do what we're talking about. Continue to push. Continue to question. Continue to find what works for you. This podcast is such a large body of work that it's hard for me to believe that the entirety of this work is going to impact your life. What it is meant to do is walk alongside you and keep you questioning and pushing for yourself, period. Whatever that looks like, whatever your terms look like, this is meant to be a guide. This is not meant to be an instruction manual. This is also just meant to not feel alone, but by no means should you follow the exact steps that I have taken, because we are not the exact same person. You should always advocate for yourself, right? And as you continue on your own journey, on shifting your own energy, you could come up on this podcast and be like, I want to do that too. What did she say? Oh, we're just believing fully in things? Cool, let's do that. It's so very deep. And my process was a very long daily ritual, daily thought, daily reading, daily like push of this mindset. And that took a very long time. That's not to say that your process couldn't be listening to this podcast and boom, shifting tomorrow. Like, you're on your own journey, you're on your own energy wavelength. You can understand when you're there. I'm just saying, like, it isn't as cosmically simple as just thinking positively, because that's not realistic either, right? Thinking that you're only going to work in the positive, thinking that the darkness will never come in, right? It's about managing that and establishing and understanding those frequencies. And so for me today, my great thing is just been seeing proof of frequency match working. Okay? That's my great thing. Take time for yourself. Recognize yourself for your own greatness. Duh, we all need to. Hey, we're not getting anywhere if we don't start that, right? That's about upping that frequency, calling into your life the things that you want to see, right? Do you want greatness, or do you want fine? I don't know. That really is up to you. That's your own personal journey. That's your own personal manifestation. My goal for myself and anyone who listens to this is that you experience greatness in your life and you establish what that is. Thus, the practice of greatness grounding. Ding, ding, ding. Okay, we're done here. Episode done. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Woo, woo, woo. So, obviously, we've crossed over. Here we are. And like the craziness of the state of the country that I live in right now, right? Because we don't all live in the same country here as listeners, is a little bit bananas, right? I still can't even fully wrap and discuss what happened because my mind is still processing all of it, and there is like a long span of things that need to happen, that need to be said, that need to be investigated, that need to like transpire from this. This is what I'm going to say in relation to that. And the whole talk is going to be on this, right? And my husband and I were discussing this last night. We were discussing this morning. The importance of controlling your energy exchange. So I want you to think about energy like this. And I would say vibration is probably a more accurate description. But think about it like this, and we're going to get into a description about how crazy and unbalanced my energy used to be. For an example, for like a standing point of understanding what I'm talking about. So think about your vibration as a math problem, right? And anytime that you say or do something bad, so that can look like gossip, that can look like anger, that can look like, right, anything that's going to just produce a bad vibration, that's always going to be returned to you, right? And so when we're acting in mostly bad vibrations, or, right, we allow those things to pile up. Maybe we aren't putting any energy into the world. Maybe we aren't returning any vibration into the world, right? Maybe we aren't doing that work because we're doing nothing. And eventually, even the nothingness overcomes us, right? And that looks like a huge spew of potentially negative energy. And so even if you're trying to protect yourself and you're eliminating all outside resources, eventually you'll be impacted again, and eventually you'll spout off. And, right, the bigger problem is the second that you put out that negative energy, the second that you have that vibration, it's returned in some way, right? Whether you send some toxic person into your life, whether something like that, right? And we're not at fault here. This is where I think we start to shift that. Okay? Bear with me. Bear with me for a second. It's about the ability to channel that in a beautiful way, right? In a way that creates something out of that, because essentially it's a buildup of energy, right? And for me, what that used to look like was this buildup of me feeling like I didn't have a voice. And so eventually I would get so built up with anger that I had suppressed, that I had kept inside of me, that I just hadn't said those things, negative or positive, right? I had just kept them all bottled up. And eventually that would look like this major like relief of bad energy, right? And I'd have to just spew it all out. And what would follow would be like a karmic reaction to that negative energy being put in the world, right? And all of a sudden, like all these terrible things would happen, and I would go, what? Why now? Like, I'm so angry. And then the anger would gather even more. And I could only, right, protect myself from that for so long, because eventually the lid was going to pop off, right? My volcano was going to erupt. Like, you can't keep those things suppressed for long enough to protect yourself. And so my equation would often look very unbalanced and would mostly be negative. And so like if I looked at it in a span of 30 days, right, probably 20 of those were spent mostly in negative energy spaces, right? Even if it's not what you think is negative, right? To me, I wasn't negative or toxic at all. I was in the right. And a lot of times that's where we get, right? We get so energetically misbalanced that that's what we think. We're in the right. And I want you to challenge yourself by looking at what is a negative energy exchange, right? Like, what is misbalancing your vibration? Is it gossip? Okay, that was a big one for me. Like, yes, I want everybody to know that I'm the source. I want to create a tribe, but like, think about the tribe that you're creating and the type of people that you're attracting in those moments when you are being that person. And even though, right, it's cool to be the go-to person, there is a negative energy exchange in that activity. And so for me, knowing that I would keep things bottled up, all of a sudden there would be this like huge spew. And the result was cosmic. It was always terrible. It always looked like me spinning off of the deep end, shit going even worse, and me spinning even further into this negative place. And so once you start to tap into that and you start to realize what is a negative energy exchange, what is a positive energy exchange, and how do I do more of the positive? And you aren't going to shift today. Trust. Like, it is not an overnight adventure, okay? Be gracious with yourself. It doesn't happen overnight, but you can begin to shift it. Okay, so we're thinking about it as a math problem, right? Negative energy, positive energy. And if you just look at your day, how much of your day is spent in negative headspaces, right? Because even if you're not putting that energy out, right, you're still bottling it. It still has to come out somewhere. And so it really is about finding an outlet. So I'm fine, right? Everybody's angry right now. And like, it is 100% justified. 100%. The important thing is that you find an outlet to channel that energy in a good way that doesn't misbalance you, that doesn't send you into the negative, right? Like my outlet used to be venting and like just ripping people apart in those vent sessions, like no question, and no one was off limits. Like, I could tear every single person down. I have like this beautiful way with words and attack and like putting things and thoughts together, right? And so that looked like me just ringing together these beautiful vent sessions that just tore the entire world apart, right? And so this podcast became an outlet, and while, no question, we were working in a very negative energy space still for a while in this podcast, right? I had a lot of pent up negative energy that I needed to just get out. This became a great outlet for me to start to balance that energy, right? And have a place for it to live so that it wasn't just overwhelming my energetic balance, so that it wasn't all getting pent up and then exploding one day, thus leading to some sort of karmic release on my life, right? Like the ability to come on here and even vent, balance that energy enough that I had energy left to start working in the positive space. And that's what's important, right? Like if you're working so much in the negative space, it is going to overwhelm and suck your energy. So you don't have enough time at the end of the day. You don't have enough energy on the weekends to read a book in the morning. You don't have enough energy to journal in the morning. Like this is what's important, right? That balance brings you back. The balance brings you back, and you can start to find an outlet to take that energy somewhere else so you aren't just penting it all up and creating a negative balance in your ecosystem, right? And if you can find an outlet, whatever that looks like, right? Maybe it's painting. And I want you to take that negative energy and create something beautiful. So it could look like anything, right? It could look like a march. It could look like creating a nonprofit so that the madness stops. It could look like creating paintings of what you're seeing, of the injustice, of all of the things, right? It could look like writing poems. It could look like writing a book about what you've experienced. It could look like starting a podcast and having these conversations. But the important thing is that you're finding a way to channel that anger versus doing something that doesn't create a frequency in return. Right? Okay? The frequency in return is important. If you're just venting with no real way to channel and create change, the karmic reaction will be negative. Now, if you're using that energy, right, to create something beautiful, to create a movement, to create a painting, to create a poem, like, come on, right? The karmic effects of even channeling that negative or angry energy into something positive, it's a different exchange. It is a different exchange. That is matching the frequency and utilizing it for something good and beautiful and justified. And like I am all for, right? There being anger, because it's a good emotion, right? It inspires, it pushes us, it moves us to do something. But that's what I want. That's what we need, right? Do something. Create the video, create the podcast, create the freaking movement. Do it, right? But venting, and this is where I lived all the time. Trust. Like I spent at least 10 years of my life, if not more, in that space where it was just like vent, 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 release, release, release with no purpose, no end goal. And that's where the energy gets misguided and misaligned, right? We have to channel negative and positive energies and do something with them. And if you take a negative energy and you create out of it, it becomes a positive energy, right? And that is matching frequency. That is finding a way to exchange that energy. That is finding a way for you to create an outlet for yourself, a beautiful outlet, so that you vibe higher. Period. And you have this ability in you, right? But we get caught in thinking that we are not capable of controlling these emotions, of harnessing them in ways to use them, right? And so we move into these worlds of suppression and these worlds of not wanting to feel these feelings because we don't know what to do with them, and they oftentimes become overwhelming, and we escape into these worlds where we don't know how to handle this. Well, yeah, we don't know how to handle it. We're all sitting here and we're believing that we're not good enough to create out of these emotions. We have imposter syndrome, like, no, don't do the podcast. No, don't write the book. No, don't write the poem. No, don't paint the picture. You're not good enough. And I am here to tell you, you absolutely are, right? And you won't get better sitting here not doing anything with that energy and using that energy to break yourself further down, right? And break other people down, right? We all rise in the collective when we build, period. And that's about understanding the energy and establishing and communicating yourself as an energetic being, and that there is always an exchange that's happening, right? And I want you to, anytime that you go into that negative space, and this is hard, and this one takes a lot of work and understanding of how you properly channel. One, go ahead and acknowledge that you're going there, right? And that there isn't anything to do with this. And this is super important. So if you're going to go into a space, whether it's with a friend, whether it's with a coworker or your boss, and you're going to have a vent session, I think first setting the rules that this is just venting and there's nothing that you want to do with this, right? Sometimes you just need to get it off of your chest in order for you to start becoming proactive with managing that energy and shifting it to a place of positive energy, and not like the hippy dippy positive energy, like good vibes only, like finding a way to properly channel this so that you become effective with it, right? If the anger isn't going to leave, and for a lot of us right now, no question, the anger is not going anywhere anytime soon. It keeps bubbling up. Then what are we doing with it, right? How are we benefiting from channeling that? Like, extreme emotions are beautiful because they can create amazing movements and change in this world. I think where we get lost, right, is when we don't do anything with those emotions, right? We don't inflict change. We keep those conversations angrily building up inside, angrily building up in our own homes, right? And think about what that does in the karmic reaction space, right? It's all about matching the vibe. And so your output and input are extremely important. Okay, right? And the reason that we can't just move at a higher frequency and ignore that good and bad exist is because that's a fake vibe. I'm just saying. Like, if you're only putting out the real, like, trust. I am an Enneagram 7. I want to be the most positive influence that exists on Instagram, on Facebook, on podcasting, like, no question, right? But that's not matching the vibe. There's a frequency here, right? I can't allow even myself to only be positive, because acknowledging and pretending like that's the only world that exists creates a negative energy flow back to me, because it doesn't. Because I can't come on here and act like nobody's angry today if you're not. Everyone's angry. I think everyone is angry at this point. So what we need to start doing is really focusing on how we're harnessing that anger in a positive, right? For a positive energy exchange. My harnessing of all of my energy looks like creating content, I'm working on painting and oil pastels, and like just increasing the output when those emotions overcome me. And that whole movement is about creating positive energy exchange out of negative emotions, right? It's all about matching frequency and finding ways to not allow yourself to get so bottled up in emotion that it explodes, right? What if you start creating every day and you give yourself that daily outlet and you find ways to manage and balance those energy shifts? Okay? It can't go away. These are good emotions. We just have to find ways for us to cosmically exist in both spaces in a positive frequency. As always, you're smart, you're strong, you're beautiful. What are you going to do? Change the world.